We're just about to have our incredible guest on, the lovely CocoConfession tonight.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm a little nervous. I'm gonna be real with you because no one really asks me to talk about science much anymore. It's been a while, but I'm excited. Gonna be great.
Coco, would you mind a brief intro?
I have been a Twitch content creator for almost 8 years now, and just a super variety streamer. I love games. I play music. I craft. I also love challenge running, so I'm a speed runner as well. And I do challenge runs in indie games and Souls games. And I originally was going to get into a science field. I got my degree in chemistry, and I wanted to get into forensic science, specifically working for a crime lab. And unfortunately, life had other plans and ended up working in retail management for about 11, almost 12 years. And then slowly, I say slowly, it wasn't slowly. It was actually a very quick transition into content creation. I was doing it as a hobby, and then I had an opportunity to just kind of jump all in, and I did. And I was, I've worked very hard, but there was a little bit of luck involved. I think I was just like, this was the right place, the right time. And I took a huge risk, and it paid off. Science thought process is like weigh the risks and analyze, and afterwards, like, you reevaluate, see if this is going to work for you. And it ended up working out for me. So that's kind of how I got here, I guess.
Which I'm so glad that it worked out, because you were so good at it too. Like, it's like one of those where it's you see someone and they're just meant to be in that position. And I love watching your streams. I love being part of the community and seeing all the things that you're able to achieve. It's been such a joy. And y'all, unofficial, I'm pushing for Coco for ambassador. I told her in person, I'm like, this needs to happen. This 100% needs to happen.
I would love to be. I did put in an application, so.
Okay. I have absolutely disclaimer, no weight in this, but if I did, I'd be pulling along, be like, please give her the fancy check.
The support is great. It would be awesome. I was the leader of the Twitch Women's Guild. I helped build the program, built the foundation of the program, and it was one of those things that it was an experience that really opened up my eyes, because you go through life and you are like, I want to do this. This is what I have my mind on. This is what I want to do. And then your experiences kind of shift that path. And I always thought I was going to be a doctor or a pharmacist, or then it was like, okay, I want to work for a crime lab. And I look back on when I was much younger and my plan for myself, and I'm like, how did I end up here? But the Women's Guild experience was so life-changing in a lot of ways. But one of the things that I realized about myself was I love doing DEI work. I love advocating for marginalized people in places that are very male dominated. And, in the gaming and tech industries, it is very male dominated. And my experience on Twitch, while it's been absolutely wonderful, I have had a lot of challenges being a woman on the platform, or being a woman on social media. Like, you can imagine what X is like for a woman who speaks up for herself, So I did find this passion to advocate for creators on Twitch. And in this case, it was women, but that's why, I had applied for ambassador years ago, and I never reapplied because I wanted to be able to bring something to the table. And now I feel like I have that perspective, that mindset on how to really make Twitch a better place, and how to advocate for those things, especially for people who don't have the resources or the voice or the opportunities and the equity to be able to.
So let's turn back a little bit earlier on in Coco's life, because I feel like a lot of the experiences that you must have had along your journey got you to this position to be able to be an incredible advocate for women, and also for like lupus advocacy, like so many things that have framed who you are. You've talked about chemistry and the crime labs, which I wonder if, and you'll let us know, I'm sure, if there's a connection to the crimers and the original crime lab, but what got you into the sciences to begin with? Like, why was it chemistry, and what was it that was attractive to you about that?
Yeah, I've always had a knack for math specifically when I was in elementary school, middle school, math and science, but I didn't have a focus on science until I hit high school. And I had the absolute best chemistry teacher. I will never forget her. She changed my life. She had a passion for chemistry that I had never seen in any of my teachers before. For science, I guess, in general, not necessarily chemistry. But she made it so fun and so interesting, and really did relate the concepts of chemistry to real life. And I think that's really important for kids, young kids, is to apply these really abstract concepts, theories, and how they're gonna how they incorporate into our daily life. And she did that. And I was like, this is what I want to do. This is awesome. I really enjoyed being in her class. I still remember the chemistry songs that she sang. This is in high school. This was a long time ago. And I still remember those. And I actually incorporated those songs in my essays for college. And it got me into the college of my dreams. And I just, I owe everything to her. But anyway, that's how I got into chemistry. And I was like, this is what I want to study. I love it. I love being in lab. I loved doing labs. And because I loved it so much, I was good at it. And she was very much focused on a lot of organic chemistry, which is where I really thrived in college. Organic chemistry was where I really found my passion.
So that's really cool that it seems that's a common theme in a lot of people who either get into the sciences or never go near it again, is that story of the one particular teacher. And so it's really cool that there was that one that you had that influenced in the positive direction. And it's also cool that there were chemistry songs.
Yes, there were chemistry songs. I can share one. You want me to share one?
If you wouldn't mind, yeah.
Okay, so they're really small and short, but they're really funny and they're catchy. And it was ways to remember formulas and stuff. So one of them was a mole is a unit, haven't you heard? It's 6 times 10 to the 23rd. And so no one forgot what a mole was for the rest of the year, and I still remember it today.
And it's such a good tune too. That is a really
yeah.
I can see it being a really good earworm.
Yeah, and it was so funny because you get to see these stereotypes of mad scientists, and she was that in the best way. She was wild and unhinged and doing these out of these world experiments on her desk, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, is she gonna burn down the school? What's gonna happen?" But it just made it so interesting. So she loved her job. She loved teaching. She loved impacting young, impressionable minds. And I thought that maybe that's what I was going to do too. I was like, okay, well, I could be the sciences opens up so many avenues, right? You can be a doctor, you can be a pharmacist, you can work in a lab, you can do research. And I was like, maybe I want to teach chemistry. I would love to be able to do what she did for me, right? Well, that ended up not happening. Now I play video games for a living, but but yeah, it's, educators are so important. And what's happening in our world, and especially in the United States right now, is really disheartening and sad because our education system is crumbling. And, you have kids that just they're not given that opportunity to be passionate about something, And I think in a lot of situations, even when I was in school, there were a lot of situations where I wasn't, my education experience wasn't fostered in a way that encouraged me to dive into what I loved and what I was passionate about. I had to separate out my time amongst all of these studies, which were important. But man, imagine if students were able to really be passionate about something, and that environment was fostered for their success in that area. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing though that it really comes across from your teacher is that she inspired you.
Yes.
Right. And I feel like we'll get into this more throughout our talk, but I think that's one thing that you still do to this day to many other people. So in a way, you still become that teacher. Yes, there's chemistry too, but through being a content creator and being an inspiration to many others, you're still kind of like taking that spirit of what your teacher brought, and it's really cool that you're like taking it to the next level. And like you said, it is really important, especially now, to be an advocate for, like, you can dream, and you can dream big, and you could pursue your passions.
Yeah, I actually didn't even think about that. I do a lot of education now that I'm thinking about it. And I do a lot of mentorship, especially in, not only with the Women's Guild, but like even outside of the Women's Guild, like taking on, people who are newer to streaming and have questions, or, I think it's really important to understand business fundamentals outside of streaming. Like my experience in business management after school was extremely important to my success as a content creator. And so like I teach people what I learned when I was in business management. And I didn't even think about it. I'm like, it's like an aha moment right now. Like, yeah, I guess I am educating people. Yeah, I may not be in chemistry, but other things.
And that chemistry background, no one can take away either. So it's like, if ever that crimer comes up to you and is like, I'm really interested in forensics, you could be like, well, you know what? I got that too. So it was interesting that you noted that it was organic chemistry, that when you went into college, that's what attracted you, because that's usually like the break point where, students go in for medical school, they hit orgo, and they're like, oh, no, thank you. What about orgo did you find really attractive? Like you're in the chemistry field now, you're really enjoying it, but that organic chemistry and a love for it is not something typical.
Yeah, I think I really enjoyed the lab work that came along with organic chemistry. By the way, what I found really wild about my college experience is like all of my labs our grades were based on making drugs and how pure they were, which I found hilarious. And like, I don't know, when I tell people that, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're doing that. I'm like, it makes sense if you're, but anyway, but that's what I did. And I loved it. I loved the process of understanding a theory and then putting it into practice in a lab and doing all of the tests to determine whether or not that experiment was successful. Like that process was so interesting for me. And then of course, like you run a reaction and then you take your product and you run all these tests on it, right? To see how impure or pure it was, or, did you get the right reaction? And you have all these, like I love IR spectroscopy. Like that was one of my favorite things to do, because it was like a puzzle, right? You like have to look at your absorptions and whether or not like you had the right right combination of compounds. Like it was just like a really cool thing. Can you tell I like puzzles? I like puzzle games. Like that's one of my favorite things. So in the sense that labs were fun for me.
Was that love of puzzles early on? Like as a kid, did you also love puzzles and it just translated to organic chemistry as well?
Yes, I think so. Because science is one big puzzle, right?
Yeah.
You have a theory, you test it, you analyze your experiments. Like it is one big puzzle. And I did like that aspect of it. So when it came to organic chemistry, I think like the lab work is really I liked it in high school when I was studying it in high school at a much more amateur level. But when I got into college and I was able to like really implement those things in the lab, that was huge for me.
And I
really liked it.
That is almost like a dividing thing as well between a lot of students going into labs, is just like having the mindset of how to dissect a problem. Did you find that you had any difficulty with going in and like creating this puzzle set, or does it come really naturally to you?
It was pretty natural. The stuff that I did in labs, I think the hardest part was creating a space for myself as a woman in labs. Like that's what I had the hardest time with. It wasn't necessarily like the material or the work, but it was like being one of the only women in my lab, or like finding a place for myself where I found that I was that I belonged there, I guess. The material itself was sometimes intimidating, especially when you're like jumping in, especially when you're like a freshman and you're new and you're green and you are trying to meet new people, and on top of it, getting into a field that's really demanding and in depth, and then on top of it, you're like one of the only women in your class. It was like a whirlwind of, oh my god, do I belong here? But after I really started to solidify my place and like I deserve to be here because I know what I'm doing, I did find a lot of success in my labs. Like those were my best classes. And being able to really like create those relationships with the professors and the TAs, and like like me being able to kind of create just a name for myself in that way as being like the organic chemistry girl. Because don't ask me to do physical chemistry or biochem. Those were not my forte for sure.
That actually dovetails into a question from the chat is what exactly defines organic chemistry and how many different kinds of chemistries are there? And I guess why did you pick orgo?
I found so physical chemistry, it's like, so biochemistry is like the biology of chemistry. So you talk a lot about like proteins and like cell reactions, and if you have any biochemists in the chat, please correct me.
No, and then model building with like proteins. Yeah.
So physical chemistry is more of like the physics of chemistry. So you talk more about, oh my God, trying to think of what would, like you can think about like radiation and vibrations and more of like the physical aspects of reactions, I guess. Can you tell I'm not good at physical chemistry? I don't even know how to describe it.
All I know about PChem is I saw a bumper sticker on the back of someone's car that says "honk at me, I passed PChem," and that's my only background in physical chemistry.
It was so beyond my understanding, like just my comprehension of it. The concepts are so abstract. I feel like with organic chemistry, what I loved about it is that yes, some of the concepts are abstract, and you're really talking about something that the eye can't see, but it made sense to me because it was, I mean, you're talking about organic compounds, right? You're talking about carbon, you're talking about things that like make us, right? And I really liked the reaction side of chemistry where you can take one thing, take another thing, you put it together, and like it creates this, and how it makes this, and like all the exceptions to the rules. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I love that. Like those were the types of things that I really enjoyed. And organic chemistry to me made sense because I felt like it was closer to what I can understand as real life.
Yeah, there's like a real life tangible explanation to it. And like you're moving around electrons and you're changing the shape of things. And it is a puzzle, right? Like you're starting off like, here is this molecule, get to this molecule at the end, and you're the one who has to fill in the recipe to get there.
Yeah. Like I thought like the 3D, I remember like all the little 3D toys that my professors had. And it's like actually showing how electrons move and how things are oriented, and like why you would have this orientation and why this couldn't have a double bond. Like those types of things were really cool to me. And just a side note in there too, which I think the reason why I was really good at organic chemistry too, I am really good at geometry. So being able to visualize the 3D structures of compounds was really helpful for me in OChem. I really thrived in geometry. I don't know if I just like am able to visualize what things look like better than people that don't like OChem, but that was something that was really helpful as well.
One thing that you were pointing out that when you were in the lab and you were like working on these questions is that initially there was a strong sense of not belonging before you basically, it sounds like you just kind of fought your way and you're like, look, I do belong here. Can you comment a little to those who are watching and maybe listening and wanting to have this, like something positive, inspirational note? Like, what is your advice for someone who's in that position now? Like, you've been through the ringer, unfortunately, where it's not just immediately welcome in, you belong here.
Yeah.
What do you suggest to folks undergoing something similar?
That's a tough thing because I don't think there's a straight answer for it, because you got to figure out like how you are going to get comfortable in that type of situation. I think that for me, it was, I think as people, when we're comfortable, we don't grow as people, as scientists, as business owners. And so if you're in a situation like that where you are uncomfortable, maybe you are the only woman or marginalized person in this group, you're the trailblazer. Like you're the person who someone else is going to see doing this, and they're going to say, I see someone who looks like me doing what I want to do. That means I can do it. And growing up, it was so important for me to see myself in places that I wanted to be. Like that's what made me say I can do this. But sometimes I didn't have that, and that was really, really hard. That's why representation is so important in all industries, in all fields, especially sciences. Because when I don't think I had one female professor when I was in college, like for the science. I mean, I took other classes, but
in the sciences in particular,
chemistry,
yeah.
I don't think I'm like thinking back, I don't think I had one female professor. And that's hard. That's hard as a woman going into the field. You're like, wow, is it that hard to be a woman in this field? So, if you are the only person, just know that it is going to be hard, but you might be the one to inspire someone else to do it, to be in that field. And I talk about this on Twitch all the time. Like, we need to see representation for women on the front page, on stages, at events, at doing showcases, because there's a little girl out there that is feeling awkward or feeling out of place because she likes video games and not dolls, and she thinks that there's something wrong with her, and she needs to see that woman on that stage talking about video games so she can say, there's nothing wrong with, that's why representation, I fight for it all the time, because it is so important to see yourself in these positions.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the goals of our Women in STEM Month series of putting together, is just to highlight, scientists, content creators who are women, who are in fact like trailblazers like yourself. And you can make a difference by seeing people who are in that position. At least that's right, the hope. I know my daughter's going through it now. She's only 2, but can you know how hard it is to find like non-boy specific dinosaur toys?
Yeah.
It's a little thing, but it's really heckin' frustrating, where it's like she loves dinos, but everything labels it's only for boys.
That's awful.
Yeah.
Girls are allowed to like dinos. I like dinosaurs. I love people, like that's what I mean, is it's tough out there for young girls in in boy fields. When I was like, I love sports. I wanted to play sports. I wanted to do traditional boy things. Like, I didn't really get into dolls, or I was in dance when I was younger, and I told my parents, I was like, I don't want to do ballet anymore. I want to play soccer. And they were like, okay, play soccer, But those types of things were a little bit tougher for young girls to get into because they weren't girly,
Yep, absolutely.
So.
But you're, like you said, the sciences unfortunately is very similar, but you end up becoming the trailblazer that ends up pushing through and making it so hopefully the next person in line, it will be a little bit easier.
Yeah, and I did have, here and there, I did have women in my classes. Don't get me wrong. Like, I wasn't the only one, but it was it was not weighted. It was very leaning to one side. And so, that's another thing too, is like supporting other women in the space is so important. Sticking together, same thing on Twitch too. It's like, sometimes when we get into situations of maybe in school or even on Twitch, where there's this like underlying competition, like, there's no such thing. Women need to stick together on Twitch too, support each other. And that's what I love about the Women's Guild too, is it's like all of these women just hyping each other up and being each other's advocates. And it's like a really awesome thing to see women supporting women. So that's another thing too, is like, if you're a marginalized person in a space, like, support other marginalized people, like, make sure you are uplifting them as well.
So in the chemistry field, like, you found like this really strong passion for the organic chemistry, and a lot of it's in the lab that was class affiliated, if I'm not mistaken. Did you do any labs that were not affiliated in the classes, and or what was how did this frame your next step or your next goal in life?
Gosh, most of my labs were all pretty much associated with a lot of my organic chem classes. I really wanted to work in a crime lab. Like, that was something that I really wanted to do. Unfortunately, about the time, my last couple of years of college, and was where I got diagnosed with lupus. And I ended up having to work full time on top of finishing my upper division lab classes at college. And so, because of all of that, I was unable to pursue a forensic career because my job at the time offered me a full-time management position that would have paid for my school loans. So I took that instead, and always said I was going to go back to school. And of course, like, once you're out of school, it's so much harder to go back. Like, if I had the time and the funds, would I go back and shoot for a master's or, try to get my PhD? Probably. I would love to. I love learning. I love understanding how our world works through a chemistry lens. I think that's one of the coolest things. And I would love to go back. But life's expensive, especially right now.
Absolutely. And trying to learn at the same time and learn and afford things, it doesn't really go together, does it?
No. I think my labs in school really helped me understand that I didn't want to be a doctor and I didn't want to be a pharmacist, and that I wanted to apply my education towards what I love doing, which is like solving puzzles or, and I just thought that like a crime lab or like a forensic chemist position somewhere would have fulfilled that like little spark inside of me of what I really enjoy doing.
It's still really cool that it hasn't soured you to learning, right? Because it could have. It's like, well, I had this dream to go pursue this particular thing, and it almost is a little bit because of financial constraints, almost taken from you. But still loving learning, that's a really, really cool component. You can still have that. Is there a favorite topic that you still love to learn that you might, pull up a paper on and just be like, oh, I wonder what's going on here?
Learning about like lupus. I did have a moment where I was like, oh man, maybe I should be like a lupus researcher or something. But I do like learning a lot about lupus because it's something that I experience every day. And I think the science behind it is, while sad, it is also fascinating to know because how complex our bodies are and our immune systems are. But I think that first I would need to go back to school and get a refresher because I've been out of college for 15 years. So I would definitely need a refresher in chemistry. But I do enjoy like organic chem, and just that very specific area of chemistry is just something that I just love to immerse myself in. So if I were to go back, it would probably be something along those lines.
And that's something that I will want to get into about like focusing on like the lupus side of things and like how that's, is extremely important to you and you do a ton of advocacy for it. Before we dive down that rabbit hole, so after college, you went into a full-time position. How did you end up today where you are now as a content creator? Because that seems also like we were talking about at the beginning, it's a pretty big jump, right?
Yeah, so I've loved video games ever since I was a very small child. Before I could even play them, I remember watching my mom play A Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo, and I would sit there and watch her and help her solve the puzzles. I wasn't helpful. I just, I didn't know what I was doing. But it was like that moment that I will always remember and was really special. And I think is like what triggered me to want to be a gamer, was enjoying watching my mom going through and playing these games and solving these puzzles. And then as soon as I was old enough to be able to play them, I started to. And I grew up with, we were a Nintendo family. We played a lot of Nintendo. And now I speedrun A Link to the Past, which is like full circle, sort of cool. So, so when I wasn't working, I was playing video games. Like I would hold Guitar Hero tournaments at my college dorm room all the time on the weekends in college. And so when I was working full time in retail, I was running flagship locations in LA for I'm not going to say which brands, but think about like the biggest brands that you would know. Like I probably worked for them, and I still play video games on my days off. And so one day I was like, well, let's just press the go live button and see what happens on Twitch. And I did. And my first game that I ever played was Final Fantasy 14. And I just enjoyed it. I started to get a pretty, fairly small audience in the beginning. I got affiliated, pretty quickly within the first month. And less than a year later, I went full time because I enjoyed it. And I started to gain an audience, and I started to exercise a creative side of me that I don't think I had ever seen. Being in the sciences is very left brain, and sometimes it stifles your creativity. And then I found something that really, I was not only passionate about, but I love. And I think that being in retail for so long also allowed me to more easily speak to strangers on the internet, which is important. And so, yeah, within the first year, I was able to go full time. I had an opportunity to leave my job because there were things happening there that were extremely unhealthy. My doctor told me I had to switch careers because my job was literally killing me with lupus. And so I was like, okay, this is it. We're going to try it. And I'm still here today.
Was this pre-COVID?
Yes. So this was the middle of 2018 is when I went full time.
So that's really incredible to even like, because like a lot of creators will be like, well, during the COVID peak, right, is when I came in, and that's when people were started coming towards me. But you've been on the platform for a while and really successful even before there was this like COVID artificial bump, right, where it was like, well, this is why I made the jump to it. So that's really, really cool that it was even beforehand and for so long too, like within a year of being able to starting to going full time. Is there a favorite game that you like to play as part of the stream, like a go-to comfort game, or is it just in general any kind of variety?
Right now, my go-to comfort game is Darkest Dungeon. I'm doing a challenge run in it right now, so it's like always easy to go back to. It's a really tough challenge run. I've been working on it for over a year now. I'm on attempt number 33 to get through the hardest difficulty of the game, Deathless, which is very, very tough. So that, or I would say A Link to the Past speedruns. Like those are the two that I'm always going back to. A Link to the Past is a comfort game for me. It's very nostalgic. What got me into gaming. I'm always going to go back to it.
And you also go on the world record runs, if I'm not mistaken, too, right?
Correct. So I am, if I haven't moved over the last few weeks, I'm number 60 in the world for 100%. No major glitches.
So how does that feel, Coco? Going from the kid who played with your mom and like, you know, pretending to go through and help, to now being in the top 100 of a world record for a video game. Like that must feel incredible.
It's a pretty cool thing. If you would have told, like, if I would have said when I was a kid, like, hey, I am going to be playing video games for a living and I'm going to be top 100 in the world for this game, I would have laughed in your face. Like, you know, it's pretty wild how life works out. And yeah, it's pretty cool. And I actually started speedrunning a different game that I played when I was younger called Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle 2. And for about 3 months, I had the world record in that game for about 3 months. And then it recently got taken from me. So I'm working towards getting it back.
So second place then?
I'm second place right now.
Okay. Yes. So we got to get Coco back up to first place. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes. I have some grinding to do.
Nice.
But
I guess let's delve into, if you're comfortable, Coco, a little bit on the lupus side of things. Like, so we've had some questions just to begin with, like what exactly is it and what is it? How does it affect a particular individual?
Sure. So lupus is an autoimmune disease. And what that means is that my immune system does not work like it should. It thinks in very, very simple terms. My immune system thinks I'm sick when I'm not. So it attacks, instead of attacking like viruses, bacteria, it attacks healthy tissues. So your joints, your skin, or your internal organs. It can attack literally anything. And that's why lupus is extremely hard to diagnose. On average, it takes about 6 years for someone to get diagnosed with lupus. I've heard someone having to wait over 20 years for an official diagnosis because there's no straight way to test for it. There is a list of indicators that you have to check off a certain amount for someone to be able to diagnose you with lupus. There is no cure. It is an extremely painful and debilitating disease depending on the severity of it, and it can vary. I know people who have kidney issues. Their kidneys are failing them. If you know Selena Gomez, she is, I think, a fairly well-known celebrity. She has lupus and had to have a kidney transplant because she lost one of her kidneys from lupus. In my case, my kidneys are fairly healthy, knock on wood. We're trying to keep them that way. But I have lung-involved lupus. So I have inflammation in my lungs. Things like COVID are very dangerous for me. I am very susceptible to respiratory infections, and I often have inflammation in the lining of my lungs, which makes them basically rub up against each other like sandpaper. So breathing is really hard sometimes. Some people have neurological involvement. Some people have heart involvement. A lot of of people get rashes on their face. Something called the butterfly rash is very, very common in lupus patients. It is a red rash that goes over your nose and onto your cheeks, and it looks like a butterfly. So it's a really tough disease, not just to diagnose, but also to treat because the symptoms are so vast, right? So when you're treating lupus, it's usually a very broad, generic attempt to suppress the immune system, to keep the immune system from attacking your healthy tissues. But in doing that, it can be dangerous because then you're more susceptible to infections from viruses, bacteria, whatever. And so it's kind of like this constant balancing act of keeping your immune system at bay while also not getting sick from other things and also managing all the symptoms that come along with it. Because most recently, within the last about 15 years, they just developed, like the FDA had approved their first drug for lupus, which was Benlysta. I believe that was in 2011. But anything before that was just about managing the symptoms. There was nothing you could do about lupus itself. So,
and because it presents in so many ways, that's also like there's different subsets of it, right? And that's why it also makes it so difficult to diagnose something like this, because it's not just you're presenting with X, Y, and Z, and that's always what it's going to be. There's all this huge range, right?
And what works for one person sometimes doesn't work for another. And that's why there's been I know, I'm sure we're going to get into the research, the most recent breakthroughs in research, but there are a lot of people that don't respond to the normal lupus treatments. And so they're having to do more clinical trials on like, okay, what are the things that we can do for these people that don't respond to any lupus treatments that we have, and their immune systems are running rampant, you know? We call it a mimicking disease because so many people who end up getting diagnosed with lupus were probably diagnosed with a million things before that. Like I was diagnosed with Epstein-Barr, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia. They thought I had mono for a while. They said I had mono, and I was like, I don't think so. I don't think it's mono. But it took me 6 years to get diagnosed, and lupus runs in my family. So imagine like, hey, I have lupus in my family, but yet I still took 6 years to diagnose is pretty absurd.
So it took 6 years for them to identify that was what was going on.
I started having symptoms when I was really young, maybe early teens. And I look back and I say, it's probably even more than 6 years, but I think that when I say 6 years, it's like when I started really pursuing a diagnosis. Like there's something wrong. I need an answer. But even before that, I was having really strange symptoms like pains as a kid. Like, why do my knees hurt when I'm 11 years old? Like, why is that happening? Why does my chest hurt when I'm laying down at night? Those types of things. So I look back and I'm like, wow, there were symptoms that were popping up even when I was a very young girl.
So that's terrifying. Like just thinking about because even if there's not initially a diagnosis, just the unknown factor of it, right? And how to manage something like that it seems like it's really scary. And then on top of that, right, you also have COVID hit. And like you mentioned, like if it's already lung infected is how it manifests within you, that makes it all the scarier of what's going on during COVID. How was it like dealing with that? Like, I mean, we're still not technically, I guess, out of the pandemic, but during the height of it all, when it was so unknown, I imagine that luckily you were in the full-time streaming service, so you're able to stay at home, but it must not, and still not must be easy.
Yeah, the pandemic was really expensive for me because I ordered in everything. I didn't leave the apartment. I didn't go get groceries at the grocery store because I just couldn't take the chance. And when the vaccine came out, I got it immedately. And then I started having really bad reactions to the vaccine. So now, after getting the first two, and then I got 2 boosters, and I was having really bad lupus flares after I would get them, and I would be sick for weeks. So my rheumatologist said, don't get them anymore because triggering lupus flares can be really dangerous, especially because it can progress the disease. It's just like not good for your body to be under so much stress. And so she said, don't get them anymore, which was real frustrating because I wanted to do whatever I could to protect myself. And now I am one of those people that relied on others to protect me. And that has been really tough because I feel really vulnerable. I wear a mask everywhere I go. Like even if I'm just like walking into the grocery store, I still wear a mask and I do my best to protect myself. I ended up getting COVID once at PAX. I double masked the entire time and I still got sick. I still got it. So because no one there was wearing a mask, and it was probably one of the worst illnesses I've ever had. I was sick for almost 2 months.
And that's being with double mask, and that's not the only conference that you've gone right on. Like we got to meet at TwitchCon, and even there having to be masked and prepared and assuming that others are also taking care of themselves and doing the vaccination attempts. Like that must be really, really frustrating then.
Yeah, it is. I mean, people are allowed to decide what's best for themselves. But what is frustrating for me is this anti-science movement right now, where there's so much misinformation being spread about the medical field and vaccines and like their safety. And it is absurd that we have a measles outbreak right now. What is happening? It was eradicated. Like what is going on? And so that's the most frustrating thing for me, is that people are making decisions based on lies, misinformation, and it really puts people like me at risk. I want to do what I can to protect myself, but there are some situations where I can't. It's more dangerous for me to take a vaccine than it is not to. So that's been really, really tough, like battling the pandemic. And then, every time we have flu season or RSV season, it's really dangerous as well. But I do whatever I can to protect myself. I try to stay out of real crowded areas and I mask everywhere. And I just do what I can. I control what I can control,
It makes it exceptionally difficult too, as a content creator, when you go into conferences, right, where it's like to meet people in the community and to further spread like your brand and who you are, it makes it all the harder to be able to do something like that too.
Yeah. It's tough because places like TwitchCon are life-changing for content creators who are trying to do this for a living or trying to take this seriously. And so it's not an option for me not to go. I have to go. And so it's that risk. It is scary. That weekend is always scary because then I go home and for the next few days, I'm like, oh my gosh, am I going to get sick? Am I getting sick? What do I do? And there's always that anxiety.
And then this past TwitchCon, you even played with CA in LA. So you were just like musical badass up on the front stage. So it's not just that you're someone who's going, you're just like straight up featured. But yeah, it kind of speaks to how, important it is to be able to go out and do these kinds of things. And it's just difficult and frustrating too. What can folks do at home in terms of contributing to research? Like, I know you had a big fundraising event that takes place in May. Could you go into a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I back in 2019, right before the pandemic hit, I got in contact with the Lupus Foundation of America because I was doing my own individual fundraising streams for them. And they reached out and they were like, you're one of the only people that fundraises for us on Twitch. And, what can we do to support you? I'm like, this is cool. Like, this would be cool to have a partnership with the Lupus Foundation and be able to do some good. And so I came back to them and I pitched an event. I was like, why don't we do a weekend long charity event for Lupus Awareness Month, which is in May? And let me see if I can get some streamers to help me out. Let's get a little collaboration going. So I put out a call on Twitter and I said, hey, like, I'm looking for people who are passionate about fundraising that want to maybe raise some money for lupus research. And the response was overwhelming. Like, I had no idea this many people have been impacted by lupus. And because it's one of those things where lupus, I call it like an invisible disease because I look fine. Like, people don't think I'm sick. My body is very, very unwell. So it's not one of those causes that gets a lot of attention, a lot of traction, because it's like one of those quiet diseases. So, but it's pretty amazing how many people have lupus or have been impacted by the disease. Maybe they have a family member or a friend. So the very first year, we ended up doing our first event in 2020. And I told the Lupus Foundation of America, I said, I'm going to get 10 streamers and we're going to raise $10,000. Well, we ended up having 35 streamers and raised over $50,000 that first year. And so I was like, okay, this is something. So I see 8BitD in the chat. 8BitD is one of the organizers as well. She jumped on that very, very first year She is a Lupus Warrior as well. So between her, me, and Elbel, I think you know Elbel, the three of us organize this event. It is the largest collaborative fundraiser for lupus research and support programs on Twitch. This is our 6th year in May, and we are on the road to hit $1 million raised for the organization. So we are really excited for this year. It's a huge milestone. Like I get so smiley and mushy about it because I just had no idea that it was going to get this big. But it's just a bunch of streamers that come together. It's like one big party. We just fundraise and hype each other up, and we have really cool events. And the Lupus Foundation of America is so supportive. They're so involved. Every year we do a Goose Goose Duck game between the streamers and the LFA staff. So why not celebrate fundraising with a little bit of betrayal and murder? Right?
Can we go into a little bit, Coco, about some of the treatments that are out there and maybe why, like kind of harkening back to how it's very patient specific, that there's not this one all kind of cure, and what the treatments nowadays in fact do, and like what are the breakthroughs that are coming?
Sure. So the drug that I'm mostly going to talk about is something called Benlysta, but I'm going to talk about treatments pre-Benlysta. And I'm not a doctor or a medical professional. I'm just speaking on my experience in a very general sense. Some people might have a different experience, but from a lot of the lupus patients that I've spoken to, there's a drug called Plaquenil, which is an anti-malarial, also known as hydroxychloroquine. You probably have heard it during the pandemic, and how it was being slung as a cure for COVID. It is not, but that's a drug that a lot of lupus patients are on just constantly because it, for some reason, minimizes lupus flares. So that's something I've been on since for the last, 15 or 20 years, like a long, long time. Steroids are also often used to treat lupus, to help with inflammation. So prednisone is something that I go on and off of all the time, but that is long-term steroid usage is never good. So it's not a sustainable treatment for people with lupus. And then there are, things to treat the symptoms. So based on if you have kidney involvement, lung involvement, heart involvement, you obviously have to treat those symptoms as well. I believe it was in 2011. I might be off by a little bit, but 2011 was the first FDA approved medication for lupus itself, and that's called Benlysta. It can be administered in 2 ways. One is a subcutaneous injection at home once a week, but there is also a once a month IV infusion. So you can imagine, since it is not just a pill, how expensive.
That's actually something chat was wondering too, about just like how expensive is something like this and how important it is having healthcare for someone in this kind of circumstance.
So this drug is meant to basically suppress your immune system. And this is in some of the articles that I had sent you about the breakthroughs, is that the way to treat lupus is to do a very broad suppression of the immune system, which doesn't, I don't want to say it works, it helps, but it's not actually fixing the specific problem because they don't really know what the specific problem is for lupus, which is what some of the breakthroughs have been lately. But for Benlysta, I can't take the injection at home. I'm actually allergic to it. My skin is. So I have to go in and get the infusion, and it's $10,000 for every infusion.
For one treatment?
For one treatment, once a month.
It's $10,000.
Yes. And in some cases, I've heard it's up to $13,000.
Wow.
Cases. So I do have insurance. They cover about $6,000, $5,000 to $6,000 of that. And then I have to go and find help through copay programs to help pay for more of that. It's a lot to navigate. It's for one medication, it's a ton to deal with insurance, deal with copay programs, apply for them, submit explanation of benefits, try to get reimbursed. Like it's a lot. And when you're already sick and stress is so bad for you, our healthcare system is really built to make it as difficult as possible to get the healthcare that and they do that for a reason. They make it difficult because they don't want to pay for stuff and they hope people will give up and all of that. And it's a really tough thing when you are new to battling a chronic illness to have to do things like this. I've been doing it for 20 plus years, so I know how to navigate these things, but I can't imagine what it's like being a newly diagnosed undiagnosed lupus patient having to deal with all of this?
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, even knowing how to navigate it, just having that month-to-month pressure on you of needing to get treatment, and then it's like, oh, I'm going to have a $4,000 bill to work with, and that dependence on phone calls and email or whatever to get the code. Like, that is an extremely difficult something to go day by day with. And that just, again, shows how strong of a warrior you are, that you continue to go. Because, I mean, content creation alone is not easy, right? Right. Content creation plus this, it seems like there's the stress of it a lot of people could buckle. But what I hope people are getting from your story is, y'all, there is an inspiration, someone to look up to here. Like, she is not just a warrior, I feel like, for lupus patients, but all of us. Like, you kind of embody, like, you're just an absolute badass, Coco. You're just like, you know what, I got this. Like, we can make it through this. And that is a spirit that is really, really incredible that you're able to embody through all this time.
I also want to put out there that the Lupus Foundation of America has been extremely supportive. And I think that there are a lot of nonprofits out there that are really great resources. So if you're battling a chronic illness outside of lupus, like, there's probably a nonprofit out there that has resources for you. Reach out to them, like, do your research on them, because they might be able to point you in the right direction if you're having trouble paying for your medication or having trouble finding treatment. Like, that, I can't tell you how, even if I don't need help with something, just knowing that the Lupus Foundation, like, I can just reach out to them and say, hey, I need help with this, and they'll have my back. So there are resources out there. It just, sometimes it takes some time to research it.
And a lot of grinding. And speaking of research, one thing that we were chatting about off stream is some of the work that's being done to help make treatments available, but it's like you were saying, it's very, very specific. So just some of the metrics behind it, right, is 9 out of 10 cases are women, right? There's also disproportionate affecting to certain communities, right, within that 9 out of 10. And then there is no root genetic cause that's been able to be identified. So, like, I've been going through paper after paper, and there are so many different varieties in terms of genetic mutations that it's affecting. So there's not just like this catch-all, cure-all that really is able to be identified, which also makes it, like, the work that you're doing with the Lupus Foundation of raising money all the more important, because it's not like you have a target to hone in on.
Yeah. And even in the research, just recently, within the last about 6 months, they have found a specific protein. Oh my, see, I'm not a biologist, so I'm going to do my best to explain this. But basically, there is a specific protein that they found. There's an imbalance that is producing a certain T cell that damages healthy tissue. And so they have never been able to figure that out before. They just figured this out. And they're saying that this specific research might be kind of a segue into finding a treatment. But the problem is that not all lupus patients are the same. So that even if they do come up, they're like, this might be the root cause of lupus, we might be able to come up with a treatment or a cure, it's not going to apply to all lupus patients, only this specific portion of them. So that's what's really frustrating about the whole thing, is there's no blanket treatment, cure, there's no blanket ideal case. Like, they just, it is a really, really complicated disease.
The metrics are also super complicated, because there doesn't seem to be a consensus of how many patients have been diagnosed or might be living with lupus. Like, on the Lupus Foundation of America website, right, it's upwards in the 1.5 million that we're looking at. But then the official, like, CDC metrics are 200 to 300,000. And so even the diagnoses, it seems like, are very, very variable. So it's like it's hard to know what you're even fighting against.
Well, so many people are probably undiagnosed and also going untreated. An experience I had was that I was diagnosed with lupus. My insurance changed, and I had to change rheumatologists. And my next rheumatologist undiagnosed me with lupus and said I don't have it and that I only have fibromyalgia. And so I was like, this doesn't feel right. So I'm going to go to another rheumatologist in the same practice as this. And I go to this other doctor, and he's like, no, you definitely have lupus. So there's even, I think, a little bit of a misunderstanding across the medical field as well, as far as understanding the disease and how it can manifest, because I am not a typical lupus patient in a lot of ways. One of the things that is kind of an indicator of an autoimmune disease is something called an ANA marker, which is done through blood work. And a lot of doctors will not diagnose with lupus unless you have a positive ANA marker in your blood. I never show it ever, unless I am like hospital sick. So people look at my blood work and they're like, well, you're not showing autoimmune markers in your blood, so do you really have lupus? But I have in the past, I just don't show them all the time. So there's there's no formula for the disease. And so it's
that
tough.
Part is even harder, right? Because even the diagnoses part, like it's one thing. It's like, yes, the genetics are very different. For example, right, in cancer, there are all kinds of differences. Even colon cancer, it's like there's 10 different subtypes depending on the mutation. But at least you can get the diagnosis. But here, it's like even the diagnosis is not something that can be standardized, which goes to speak of the complexity of lupus itself and why it's so important to fundraise. And what you're doing is so important as well, so we can get some answers, if we can get help for those in need. Which again, y'all, just a plug again for Coco. If you're not dropping her that follow right now, please go drop her the follow. She is an incredible content creator, an incredible advocate for women in science, for lupus, all of it. Like seriously, Coco, everything that you do, it's big stuff. And I know it can get lost a lot, I feel, in the weeds, but just like pulling back on the curtain, like you do a lot for a lot of advocacy. A lot.
Yeah, I try to, living with this disease is really hard, and I am in a place of privilege. I grew up and had the healthcare that I needed, and even with that, I'm still struggling. Like I still had a trouble getting diagnosed. I still have trouble having access to meds. Like I have access to Benlysta right now. Most people can't get it. It's too expensive, or their insurance won't cover it. And so my whole thing is I want the generation after me who have lupus should not have to suffer like I did. And so I am trying to leave this world saying I'm doing everything I can to make the next round of Lupus Warriors set up for a better quality of life than I've had, and had to suffer less than I have. And that goes for any group of people that I advocate for. Same thing for like women on the platform. When I started on Twitch, I didn't have anything. I had to struggle to get to where I am today, and I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have like really any women to look up to, because all that was surrounding me were men. And so now I'm thinking, well, I want the young girl who's watching Twitch that wants to be a streamer. I want her to have it easier starting out than what I had to go. So that's kind of like my driving force in everything I do, is like I want the people that Ash said hi says this the best, and I love her for this. She says we have to throw down the ladder after us for the people that are down there trying to rise up. And I think that that's like a really great way to put it. Like I want to throw the ladder down for the people that come after.
That is a really beautiful way to put it. And it feels very much in the culture that you're cultivating that it's not a competition, that there is enough room at the table for everyone, right? And so it's really huge to find someone who's gone through the process of not being welcomed into certain spaces, whether it be a woman in a gaming field, a woman in the sciences. But you've come through, and Coco, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't really seem bitter. You seem like you have a full-on force of wanting to be a driving force for good. Like you might be bitter, like about those jerks who did stuff, but like it's not really raining through, if that makes sense.
I get older, I am having like the get off my lawn mentality a little bit more, but but no, I mean, I think our experiences shape who we are, and I've been through a lot, and I'm pretty transparent about my experience with my disease. A couple of years ago, I had a little bit of a cancer scare, probably because of lupus, and luckily I'm fine now. I'm good, I'm clear, and I'm monitoring my situation. But I had some really big complications with that situation. It put me in the hospital and all these things, and those types of things I try not to let break me. I feel them and I experience them and I have my moments with them, but I try to always keep that mentality of like, I am who I am today and I'm impacting the world, even if it's in a small way, I'm impacting the world for the better. And these things that are happening to me are allowing me to do those things. And while some days are better than others, sometimes I have a better outlook than others, I do think that having to go through what I've been through has allowed me to hit $1 million for charity with GoTell, you know? If I didn't have those experiences, I probably wouldn't be here. So I try to stay in that positive mentality as much as I possibly can. Because it is easy to be down and to feel sorry for yourself and all of that, especially when you're faced with such adversity all the time. It's very easy to get there. And it took me a long time to figure out how to manage it. In the beginning, it was very, very hard. I did not manage it well. But with time also comes healing.
Do you have any, want to say, but almost tips and tricks for those in similar positions, maybe, a couple of years back in their journeys of how to, like, reflecting back on what is a way that you would be like, what, if I learned, knowing now this is how I would have dealt with X or Y or Z?
Are you talking from like a Twitch streamer standpoint or like battling chronic illness?
No, actually, both.
Okay. So I think that, when it comes to, managing a chronic illness, a support system is really important. You need to find your people that are going to try to understand your situation and be a positive light in your life. And that's friends, family. That's, I love my moderators on Twitch. They are so understanding of my situation. And like, I truly feel like they're a support system for me when it comes to my disease and what I go through. I think that having people that go through the same thing that you, so like me finding other lupus warriors on Twitch was a huge shift in my ability to manage my disease because I had people that understood what I was going. So I do think like finding your people, your support system is really important. As far as like being a streamer on Twitch, I always tell, if I were to tell myself 7 years ago, it's to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and take those risks. And if you aren't putting yourself in situations that stretch your perspective, your mindset, your skills, that kind of push you outside of what you know, like you're not growing. So it's okay to take risks and fail because there's no such thing as failure in content creation. They're learning experience. And if something doesn't work, that's fine. You say, okay, this didn't work. I'm going to change this and do something different. And we're going to see how that goes. And you move on. There's no such thing as failure in content creation.
Do you think that mindset came from your background in science? Because that's a very, very healthy mindset to have in the sciences too.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's kind of what you do, right? You say, okay, here's the theory of this experiment. This is what I want to do. Here's the plan, right? You execute that plan and it either goes well or it doesn't. And then you analyze after the fact and you say, okay, this is what worked. This is what didn't work. How are we going to change it to make it even better next time? And that's what I tell a lot of people that I mentor too. It's, that's kind of like what you do in business as well when you want to execute a business plan, right? I think it's a real fundamental idea that can be stretched across multiple industries on how you approach a problem,
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you have almost all the different worlds kind of blended together in where you are now, where it's like the creative side of things with the content creation, you have the scientific side of things with like the base plan, then you have to pull in the business side of things too. And it's like juggling all these at once is not a straightforward thing, but you, like you said, after so many years of experience, you just, I don't know, you make it look easy, Coco. I know it's not, but you make it look easy.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not. I've made many mistakes, too many to count in my time, in my life, of course, but also like on my time on Twitch. And I do also want to say, like, it's okay to feel emotions and to feel down or feel disappointed or feel like, you sometimes you say like, oh, I failed at this, but and it's okay to feel those things. But what's most important is how you move forward and react to what has happened and how you can adjust your strategy or adjust your path to be able to learn from that that situation and be better next time, because that's what being a human is, right? Like, we just try to be the best that we can be. I don't make New Year's resolutions ever, because I never keep them. But what I do, I make a promise to myself the next year to say, I'm going to be better than what I was before, either a better person, do more for charity, or maybe it's develop a skill, or I'm just going to be a better Coco than I was the year before. So that's all you have to strive for. Other than that, we're humans. It's okay. It's not the end of the world.
I love that as advice. I feel like it's something that we kind of lose track of a lot of the times, where it's like you want to do something grandiose, but honestly, at the end of the day, if you can just be a better version of yourself from whatever time period to the next, that's really the biggest thing that we can strive for and go forward on that. Yeah, very, very beautifully put, Coco. As we are rounding out our discussion, because I want to make sure that we're aware of your time and I don't want to, take up too much of your time. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of your side hustles as well, like being an incredible bassist, right, a musician? Like, how did that come to be, and how long has that been part of the Coco journey, and it being also part of the stream now, as well as the cats, that are being crimers in your community? Tell us about that.
Music. I've always had a passion for music. I just decided that I wanted to learn how to play guitar, and so I taught myself how to play guitar from tabs on the internet, and there was a band that needed a bassist, so I was like, okay, well, I can learn bass. So I decided to learn bass, and I really do think that my science background and my math background really helped me music. Like, there's just this weird instinct that I have for timings and patterns that I swear has come from my science and math background. I don't have evidence of that. It's just a hunch, but I have never had any official training or in music at all. So everything I know is from what I've taught myself. And I just enjoy listening to music, playing music. I'm in LA. If I wanted to go see a live band tonight, I could just Google something and I'm sure there's someone playing down the street, right? So before the pandemic, I was going about once a week to live concerts, whether it be in a big arena or the dive bar down the street. I was seeing live music somewhere. And so I just have this, music fulfills me in a way that nothing else can. So I started playing music on stream during the pandemic, since I couldn't play live anywhere else. And that was really scary for me. That was probably one of the scariest things that I've ever done. And that's a good example of how you grow as a person when you put yourself in uncomfortable situations like that, because now I regularly play bass on stream, and now I'm playing with CA in LA, they are two incredible women on the platform that write their own music, and they asked me to play bass for them. So we occasionally play in LA and play live shows, and that's really cool. So yeah, I do incorporate music in my content sometimes, because it's something that I love and I'm passionate about, and I want to share that with my audience.
And headlining the Twitch stage as well. So not just in LA, but also San Diego, and soon it'll be coast to coast at this rate.
We did play the Cabana stage at TwitchCon this year, and that was really, really fun. I had a great time.
It was an incredible performance. I was like, oh my God, this woman is absolute fire. And it's you already know from being able watching on stream, you're just the mega focus and you're going, but it was just it was such a well put together show. Everyone on that stage is so talented. And it was just really cool seeing, again, that side of Coco also being highlighted.
Yeah, it's really cool. I never thought that I would be playing music on a stage when I first started out, because LA is so competitive with musicians, right? You have people who are classically trained and go to school for it. And so I'm like, oh man, I'm never going to be able to play live. But what I've learned about music is you just have to find the right people to play with, people that you have chemistry with, that you vibe with, that you have the same style. And what I love about CA in LA is they are my hype women. They think so highly of me, and I'm like, I'm just showing up and playing some bass lines for you, and they just are so supportive, and they're always shouting me out, and I love them them both so much because they believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. So I owe them so much. So much.
Is that, do you think, a theme of being a good mentor? That almost seems like it ties back to your chemistry teacher back in high school as well.
What you mean, like seeing things in people that they don't see in themselves?
Yeah. Is that
I think also being a content creator, that's just like something that's embedded in our brains, I think. Sometimes where it's just like it's like that imposter syndrome. I think, and anything creative or anything entertainment related it's really easy to question yourself and what you're doing and whether you're good enough. And I'm trying to be better at that. But I think it's much easier to like see things in other people than sometimes we see in ourselves.
Yeah, that's something I struggle with on the daily too, of like, oh, if I go live, is it just all going to have been a dream and it's going to implode right away and it's just done forever? So it's cool to hear that someone that, you look up to as well that is successful. It's like, yeah, you also struggle with the same things, but we push on and push forth. Do you have any, so we had one question from the chat about the Twitch Women's Guild. Do you have any insight and suggestion for folks to join, and like who is it designed for and who should join? And because you founded it, right? You were one of the founders. Like what is your take on founding something like that, and who should join and what's the benefit?
Well, if we want to talk about imposter syndrome and how stressed I was when I found out that I was, because I applied for it. And I'm a huge supporter of like, if you want something, even if you know you're not going to get it, like apply for it anyway. Like get your name out there, get your name in front of people. And so that's kind of where I was at, where I'm like, okay, could I do something like this? Absolutely. I've run communities before. I run Game Enthusiast and Lupus. Like this isn't outside my realm of capabilities, but I know that the competition is going to be fierce. Like there are some incredible women on Twitch. And so I put my name in the hat anyway. And when I got that email, it was like immediate panic, like I'm a fraud. I don't belong here, But then once all those feelings, melted away, I was like, okay, we can do some real good here. Like this is something that Twitch has needed for a long time. And to support marginalized people on the platform, like this is going to be our opportunity to better represent marginalized people on the platform, to give people a voice, to create events and things that will highlight these incredible content creators that don't normally get highlighted. So, and what the guilds are is it's a safe space for these people to come together, find people with similar experiences, share knowledge, because we all have different experiences and different levels of knowledge, right? We have people who are just starting out with streaming. We have people who have been doing this for 10 years, and it's getting everybody together to encourage collaboration, encourage relationships, networking, but also it's focused around amplifying and uplifting the voices of these marginalized groups and creating events to help share those voices. And that's a very broad thing. Like that can be done in so many different ways. And I was a guild leader for a year and a half, and even the year and a half wasn't enough to do everything that I wanted to do, right? But we spent a lot of that time seeing how we can make some noise on Twitch and say like, hey, we are women and we're here and we have things to contribute and we have value. And it's ridiculous that the top 100 streamers are all men and that there aren't any, maybe there's one or two women, but there need to be more of us up there. We are just as worthy. So if you identify with any of the guilds and you are a streamer on Twitch and you want to be in a place where a safe space with people that are like you, then apply. I believe all of the applications are open. I can try and find a link for them, but they're all open right now.
They are open right now. Actually, Lita just applied as well. So, we're lucky that we're a husband-wife team, and she was just like, man, I really want to do it. And I'm nervous about it because we're having a kid now. But the really unique perspective when we talked to guild leaders is that they were like, well, still apply just because you have a kid and you can't be on the whole time. Like, that's okay. And it was just, it's such a different mindset mindset than what it was in the sciences, right? Where there's this level of understanding to it and this level of welcoming to it that is really, really incredible. And it's promoting this mindset that you want to see more of. And it's just, we were both like, wait a minute, what? That's the response? That's awesome.
Yeah, it's about a support system, right? So it's like it's there for when you need it. If you if you need to attend to IRL stuff, family stuff, like no one's gonna fault you for that. It's about it being a resource for people who don't have access to the same opportunities or the same access to information, knowledge, experience. Well, it's all about trying to create some sort of equity in a space that's very male dominated. And so the Women's Guild is about being a space for women to come together and support each other, and it's there for when you need it.
Are there any requirements?
Twitch lists the requirements on the application. I believe that the requirements are fairly, they're not very stringent. Like you need to have streamed in the last certain amount of days. I don't know if they've changed that or not. I haven't looked at the application since they reopened it, but just take a look and make sure on the application that you do those things. But one thing I do want to make sure that everybody does, you have to fill out your creator survey on your dashboard to be able to be eligible to apply. So you just go to your dashboard and it's on the left-hand side under, I think for me it's partner, but I think there's I can tell you right now, so I don't give any wrong information.
And we had our mods put in the application link as well. Thanks y'all for that.
Oh, okay. It's under, so if you go to your dashboard, left-hand side, you go to settings and it's called streamer survey and you just fill that out. Make sure that's filled out because they will not consider you if you don't have it.
There we go. Thank you very much for that, Coco. As we round out, one question that we've been asking all of our guests as they've come onto stream is, and kind of the theme of the month is, you had a background in chemistry, you're a content creator, you're a musician, a maker and crafter, kitty cat person, you just running the whole gambit. What does it mean to you to be a part of a woman in STEM? Like, what does that mean to you?
It's funny. That's kind of a hard question because it's just me. It's just who I am, but it's important for me to understand that I might be that person that a little girl says I can do this, right? And so to be a woman in STEM, to be able to help pave the way for the people that come after me, even if I am not necessarily doing things in chemistry, as a woman and as a biracial woman, to be able to be here and speak up about my experience, or being a women's guild leader, or to be a Twitch partner, or to speak on a stage somewhere, that means the world to me because I did not get to see that when I was a little girl. And if I'm able to be that person for a little girl somewhere else where it shows them that they can do this too, then I feel like everything that I've been through has been worth it. And so any woman or marginalized person who is out there and is playing against the odds and you are alone or you're the only person that's like you in your field, just know that you are probably the source of inspiration for someone else.
There is no topping that line, Coco. I feel like you inspire us on the daily, but I hope that many people who are watching, listening, whether now or on a later recording, get that inspiration from listening to your story, because you are truly an incredible person, and that people should look up to you because you do so much. And it's just, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. I was, like I said, I was nervous about messaging. I'm like, we're a small streamer. We're not as big as Coco. And you've only ever treated us with kindness. And that's all I've ever seen from you as well. Doesn't matter what the streamer is like, you exude kindness, welcoming, you foster a community that you talked about today with respect to the values that you want to have it. So absolutely, you have a forever fan in us. And I'm sure that many, many folks in the community are likewise.
Thank you so much for having me. It's cool to kind of revisit my science life that feels so long ago. I appreciate what you do on this platform. I think science education is so important, probably now more than ever with what's going on in our world. And I know that you're a Twitch ambassador and so well deserved because you're doing something on this platform that I think is needed and is so cool and is really thinking outside the box on what this platform is. And so I'm just really grateful to be here. And thank you for believing me, I guess. I don't know. You speak so highly of me. I don't even know what to say. I'm so like my cheeks are so red. I'm blushing.
Thank you, Coco. Have a lovely evening, and we'll see you real soon.
Bye.